The earth trembled under the weight of a storm that wasn't from nature. The skies burned bright as alien warships, massive and menacing, blotted out the sun. The Dominion, a race of ruthless beings with intelligence far surpassing human understanding, had launched an invasion like nothing Earth had ever seen. Their fleet, controlled entirely by advanced artificial intelligence, circled the planet like vultures waiting to descend. Cities crumbled under bombardment, and the very air vibrated with the hum of alien ships overhead. It was as if the end had come, but humanity had something the invaders didn't expect: the refusal to give up. As Earth's defenses crumbled under the overwhelming might of the Dominion, a chilling voice boomed through every broadcast frequency. It was the Dominion's commander, his tone dripping with arrogance and cruelty. "Surrender or perish, Earthlings," the voice announced coldly, as if the fate of an entire planet didn't matter at all. The words echoed across every corner of Earth, sending shivers through the hearts of those who still fought. It seemed like the final warning, the last chance for humanity to lay down their arms and accept its fate. But humanity's spirit had never been one to bow to oppression. Even as buildings collapsed and the skies darkened with the shadow of alien warships, one voice rose above all others. General Karahawk, the leader of Earth's last defense, responded firmly, her words resolute and defiant. "We will never surrender. You'll regret underestimating us." Her voice, broadcasted through every surviving communication channel, rallied the remaining soldiers, citizens, and leaders who still had hope. The words of defiance pierced through the chaos, echoing across the globe. As the camera zoomed in on the battlefield, the final line of defense came into view. A small fleet of human ships, battered but still functional, cloaked by experimental technology. These ships weren't equipped with the advanced weaponry of the Dominion, nor the massive fleets they commanded, but they held something far more dangerous: the unshakable will to survive. They knew the odds, but they also knew that surrender wasn't an option. Their cloaking technology, a last-ditch effort by Earth's brightest minds, could give them a chance, if they used it wisely. The Dominion's ships were vastly superior, their weaponry far beyond anything humanity had ever known, but the humans would not back down. They had learned to fight in the shadows, to strike when their enemies least expected it. And in the silence of space, that's exactly what they did. Fast-paced space combat erupted as Earth's fleet launched a counterattack. Blasts of laser fire cut through the void, each shot aimed with precision, every maneuver calculated to outwit the enemy. The Dominion's fleet was large, its firepower overwhelming, yet the humans fought with everything they had. Ships dodged laser blasts, narrowly avoiding destruction as they soared through space, their cloaking devices flickering in and out. The enemy didn't know where the next strike would come from, and that uncertainty was their greatest weakness. In the midst of the chaos, Captain Ethan Cole, the leader of the human fleet, guided his small ship through the storm of explosions and energy blasts. His crew, though outnumbered and underpowered, had the heart of warriors. "We fight for our home, our families, and for every soul lost," Ethan shouted as he took his ship through a series of daring evasions. His crew, battered but resolute, followed his every command. There was no fear in their hearts, only the desire to protect what was theirs. The camera focused on Ethan's face as he gripped the controls, his eyes steely with determination. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for everything humanity had built, everything they had sacrificed. His heart ached for those who had already fallen, but their loss only fueled his resolve. This wasn't just a battle for Earth, it was a battle for the soul of humanity. As the humans launched another surprise attack, destroying a small Dominion warship in the process, the tide began to shift. For a brief moment, the invaders hesitated, their massive fleet thrown into confusion. They had never encountered resistance like this before. These weren't just desperate survivors. They were humans, and humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to fight back, no matter the odds. The Dominion's AI commanders, accustomed to easy victories, couldn't anticipate the unpredictable nature of human warfare. They relied on logic and calculation, but humanity had something the Dominion could never predict: unpredictability. Even though the odds were stacked against them, Earth's defenders continued to strike back, determined to protect their home. The 6-minute sequence left the audience breathless, watching as the underdog humans defied the seemingly invincible Dominion. Every explosion, every near miss, every victory was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The odds were overwhelmingly against them, but there was something in their eyes that couldn't be denied: hope. It was the hope that despite all the destruction, despite the overwhelming power of the enemy, they could still fight. They could still win. The audience couldn't help but wonder, how could they possibly survive this? The question hung in the air, unanswered. But one thing was certain: the fight was far from over, and the humans had no intention of backing down. The sounds of battle echoed across Earth's devastated landscapes, but they were no longer just the booming blasts of alien weaponry. Humanity was fighting back, furiously, fiercely, and with a determination the Dominion had never seen before. Earth's major cities, once bustling with life and innovation, were now battle zones as Dominion ground forces laid siege to everything in their path. They marched in perfect formations, their metal footsteps crushing everything beneath them. But Earth wasn't giving up. Not yet. In the heart of the chaos, the resistance began to form. It wasn't a formal army, nor was it a vast force. It was a ragtag group of survivors, soldiers, and civilians, all united by one single purpose: to protect Earth, no matter the cost. With guerrilla tactics honed over the last few months of conflict, the humans had turned the tide in several key battles, striking fast and disappearing into the shadows using advanced technology like cloaking devices, EMPs, and AI-controlled robots. Despite the technological advantage the Dominion had in space on the ground, it was a different story. Human ingenuity was their weapon. Every corner, every building became a battleground. The fight for Earth had become personal. It wasn't just about survival. It was about taking back their home from the invaders who had shown no mercy. Among the leaders of the resistance were individuals whose lives had been shaped by the destruction, and their resolve was unbreakable. Captain Ethan Cole was one such leader. A seasoned fighter, Ethan had been fighting the Dominion for years, ever since the initial invasion. He had lost everything when the Dominion first struck: his family, his home, his future. The pain of those losses drove him, gave him purpose. He became a leader, not out of ambition, but out of necessity. His tactical brilliance had saved countless lives, and his understanding of the enemy made him a key figure in the resistance. Ethan was not alone in his fight. Dr. Alyssa Kane, a brilliant scientist and inventor, had provided humanity with its most valuable weapon: the cloaking device. It was a creation born out of desperation, but refined into a near-perfect tool for stealth. With it, the humans could move undetected through enemy lines, striking when the Dominion least expected it. Alyssa's mind had been the difference between survival and annihilation, and she was as determined as any soldier to see humanity win this war. The loss of her own family during the initial strikes had hardened her resolve, but it also gave her a deep empathy for the civilians she fought to protect. Then there was Bonner, Ethan's closest friend and most trusted soldier. Bonner had been by his side through every battle. He was a quiet man with a fierce determination, a man who believed in the cause even when everything seemed hopeless. Bonner had lost his wife and children to the Dominion early in the war, and since then he had fought with a singular focus: revenge. But more than that, he fought for the future, for the generations that would come after the war. His loyalty to Ethan and the resistance was unshakable, and he was ready to sacrifice everything for humanity's survival. The resistance had its moments of success, but it also had its heart-wrenching losses. In one of the fiercest battles on the outskirts of a major city, Bonner's squad found themselves pinned down by a relentless Dominion assault. The alien forces had the upper hand, their weapons tearing through the human defenses with terrifying precision. It was a battle the humans had no chance of winning, but they fought anyway. Bonner, with his usual quiet strength, had volunteered to hold the line, giving the rest of the team time to retreat to safety. Ethan watched from a distance, helpless. He could see Bonner's figure, standing firm, firing at the incoming enemy with all his might. The Dominion had underestimated the human resolve, but it didn't matter. Bonner was one man against an entire army. And yet he fought on, refusing to give an inch. As the battle raged on, the unthinkable happened. A Dominion heavy assault drone locked onto Bonner's position. In a last act of defiance, Bonner threw himself at the drone, using the last of his strength to disable it with a grenade. But in the process, the explosion claimed him. Ethan's heart shattered as he witnessed his closest friend fall in battle. The loss was unbearable. Bonner had been more than a soldier. He had been a brother, someone who had stood beside him through the darkest days. And now he was gone. But Bonner's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The rest of the resistance had managed to escape, thanks to his bravery, but the cost was high. The death of Bonner ignited a fire within Ethan. It wasn't just anger or grief, it was a fierce resolve. He would lead the final push. The Dominion had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. They had underestimated humanity at every turn. But they would not win. Not while Ethan was alive. Not while there was a single human left standing. The loss of Bonner, combined with the sacrifices of countless others, became the emotional core of Ethan's mission. The Resistance, once a group of survivors, had now become an unstoppable force. They weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for the future, for the memory of those they had lost, and for the ones they still had to protect. The war was no longer just about Earth's survival. It was about the legacy humanity would leave, and the world they would rebuild once the battle was won. Ethan's leadership was more vital than ever. His pain over Bonner's death fueled his every move, his every decision. It was time to push back. It was time to make the Dominion regret ever setting foot on Earth. The final push had begun, and no one, not the Dominion, not their machines, and not their AI-controlled forces, would be able to stop humanity's resolve. The humans had refused to give up before. Now they would show the Dominion just how far they were willing to go. The war between humanity and the Dominion had reached its peak. Every day, the Dominion's advanced AI-controlled fleets and armies seemed to grow stronger, more organized, and more ruthless. These AIs didn't just command the Dominion's forces. They were the backbone of their entire war effort. Every decision, every move made by the Dominion, was calculated and executed with deadly precision. The AI systems predicted every human strategy, every last-ditch effort, countering them before they could even begin. It seemed like there was no hope for humanity. How could they win against such an unrelenting enemy? The Dominion's AI was their ultimate weapon. These machines were faster, more accurate, and more intelligent than any human could ever hope to be. They knew exactly how to strike, where to strike, and when to strike. The humans had no chance in a head-on battle. The odds were stacked against them, and yet they refused to give up. Dr. Alyssa Kane, Earth's brilliant scientist and inventor, had been working on a secret project in the shadows. For months, she had been studying the Dominion's AI systems, trying to find a weakness. It was a long shot, a dangerous gamble. But if it worked, it would be humanity's last chance at victory. One night, in the hidden labs beneath Earth's remaining strongholds, Alyssa finally revealed her project to Captain Ethan Cole. He entered the lab with a mix of exhaustion and determination, the weight of the war hanging heavy on his shoulders. He had just returned from a series of failed raids against Dominion positions, and morale was at an all-time low. But Alyssa's words sparked a glimmer of hope in his tired eyes. "I've done it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've created an AI virus, a program that can infiltrate the Dominion systems and disrupt their AI control. If we deploy it, we can turn their own machines against them. It could be the turning point we need." Ethan's heart raced as he listened. It sounded too good to be true. A virus that could break the Dominion's stranglehold on Earth. A way to defeat their eye without facing their overwhelming power directly. It was exactly what they needed, but it came with risks. There's one problem, Alyssa continued. The virus is unstable. It's not ready for mass deployment yet. It needs time. Time that we don't have. Ethan didn't hesitate. Then we'll give it time. We'll make time. The decision was made. The humans would launch a daring raid on one of the Dominion's strongholds, a heavily fortified facility that housed a central server for the Dominion's AI network. It was a suicide mission, but it was their only hope. If they could plant the virus in the heart of the Dominion's operations, they could bring the entire system crashing down. The raid was set into motion with military precision. Ethan and his team, armed with cloaking devices and the latest human technology, infiltrated the facility under the cover of darkness. As they moved deeper into the heart of the enemy stronghold, the weight of their mission pressed on them. Failure wasn't an option. The fate of Earth depended on them. The facility was a fortress, surrounded by miles of alien-controlled territory. The humans moved quietly, using the element of surprise to their advantage. Their cloaking technology kept them hidden from the Dominion's surveillance systems, but they knew it wouldn't last forever. Time was running out. When they reached the central server room, the tension in the air was palpable. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. The room was heavily guarded, filled with Dominion robots and soldiers who patrolled every inch of the facility. They were close, so close, but the final obstacle lay before them. The only way to plant the virus was to take out the guards without alerting the Dominion to their presence. The plan was risky. They would have to fight their way through. The battle that ensued was brutal and fast-paced. Humans and robots clashed in the narrow corridors of the facility, weapons flashing as laser fire lit up the dark spaces. The air crackled with the sound of gunfire and explosions as they pushed forward, one step at a time. Humans fought with everything they had, using their cloaking devices to move in and out of the shadows, striking fast and disappearing before the Dominion could retaliate. Ethan led the charge, his hand steady as he fired on the advancing robots. The human team worked in perfect coordination, covering each other's backs, making sure no one was left behind. But the Dominion's forces were relentless, and the fight was far from easy. Every step forward felt like a victory, but it came at a cost. One of Ethan's soldiers, Hera, was hit by a laser blast as she tried to hold off a group of Dominion soldiers. She fell to the ground, her face grimacing in pain, but she never stopped fighting. With her last breath, she fired her weapon, taking down 2 of the enemy soldiers. The sacrifice didn't go unnoticed. It fueled the fire inside the remaining humans. With every battle, the humans grew closer to their goal. They finally reached the heart of the Dominion's AI control room. It was a massive chamber, filled with towering computers and glowing data terminals. The central server stood at the center, protected by layers of security measures. Alyssa was quick to work, plugging in the virus and initiating the upload. The clock was ticking, and the Dominion forces were closing in. But just as the upload began, the alarms blared. The Dominion had discovered their presence. A fierce battle erupted as the humans fought desperately to defend the virus upload. Explosions rocked the room as robots and soldiers poured in, their weapons tearing through the human defenses. The humans fought with everything they had, using every trick and every piece of technology at their disposal to hold their ground. The camera zoomed in on the fighters, covered in dust and blood, their faces determined and fierce. There was no time to retreat, no time to give up. The virus was almost there, just a few more moments, and they would have won. The humans held their ground as the server blinked with life. The virus had been planted. And then, as the last Dominion soldier fell, the virus activated. The AI systems that controlled the Dominion's machines suddenly faltered. The robots froze, their movements jerky and erratic. The Dominion's fleet lost communication, and their strategic advantage shattered. For the first time since the war began, the humans had the upper hand. The battle was far from over. But in that moment, humanity had struck a devastating blow to the Dominion's supremacy. The tide had finally turned, and the humans refused to give up. The human resistance was still reeling from the loss of Bonner. His sacrifice had fueled their drive to push forward, but it also left a deep hole in their hearts. Each victory was bittersweet. For every step they took toward victory, the memories of their fallen comrades weighed heavily on them. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, they refused to give up. They couldn't afford to. But just as things seemed to be shifting in their favor, a betrayal threatened to destroy everything. The trusted informant who had been feeding vital intel to the resistance was revealed to be a Dominion spy. The shock was immense. This was someone they had all relied on, someone who had earned their trust and respect. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound the Dominion's forces had inflicted. The spy had given the Dominion detailed information about the location of the last human stronghold, and they were already on their way to attack. Ethan Cole couldn't believe it. His mind raced as he tried to process the implications of this treachery. He had lost so many people already, and now this. His leadership was being questioned by his own team. They had come so far, only to be blindsided by someone from within their ranks. How could they have been so blind? How had they missed the signs? Ethan stood alone in the command center, staring at the screens showing the Dominion's advancing fleet. The enemy was closing in faster than expected, and their arrival could mean the end for humanity. His hands trembled as he clenched them into fists. Every decision, every step they had taken, now seemed like it might have been for nothing. His heart felt heavy, burdened by the weight of the responsibilities he had carried since the beginning of this war. But then, through the fog of doubt and anger, a memory came to him. Bonner, his friend, his brother in arms, had fought until the very end to protect the people he loved. The sacrifices they had made, the lives lost, could not be in vain. The team had fought too hard, too long, to let one traitor destroy it all. Focus, Ethan muttered to himself, shaking off the despair. We fight because we have no other choice. With renewed determination, Ethan called his remaining forces together. The betrayal had shattered their trust, but they couldn't afford to fall apart. They needed to fight back, even if it seemed impossible. The Dominion had underestimated humanity before, and they would do so again. As they prepared to evacuate, the ground began to shake. The Dominion was already attacking. Explosions rang out, rattling the walls of their last base. The enemy's massive fleet had arrived, and they were unleashing hell upon the humans. Move out. We're not done yet, Ethan shouted as he led the charge. The humans fought through the chaos, trying to reach the escape tunnels that would take them to a more secure location. Each step was a struggle, but they pressed on, knowing that their survival depended on it. The explosions around them were deafening. The air was thick with smoke and dust as their makeshift base crumbled under the Dominion's assault. Humans fought valiantly, but the tunnels were collapsing around them. The sense of urgency was overwhelming as Ethan and his team raced to escape. The walls shook with each blast, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble as if the very earth was rebelling against the invasion. With each step, it felt as though the end was imminent. But through the pain, the fear, and the loss, something else stirred within Ethan and his team. Hope. The hope that despite everything, they could still survive. They could still turn the tide. They had come so far, and they wouldn't let it all be taken away so easily. As they reached the final stretch, they found themselves face to face with another wave of Dominion soldiers. It seemed like they had no choice but to fight or die. But just as the Dominion forces moved in to strike, something unexpected happened. The AI virus, created by Dr. Alyssa Kane, activated. The change was immediate. The Dominion fleet, which had been closing in on Earth's last stronghold, suddenly faltered. Their ships began to malfunction, their weapons firing unpredictably, and some of their own ships started attacking each other. It was as if the Dominion's advanced technology had suddenly turned against them. The humans seized the opportunity. With the Dominion fleet in chaos, they pushed forward, fighting through the malfunctioning robots and soldiers. The advantage was brief, but it was enough to allow them to escape the crumbling base and find refuge in the underground tunnels. The virus had bought them a moment of hope, a fleeting chance to regroup. Ethan stood amidst the chaos, his heart racing as the realization hit him. They had done it. They had struck a blow to the Dominion's seemingly unstoppable war machine. But he also knew that the fight wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The Dominion was still a threat, and humanity had to be ready for whatever came next. But for now, they had won. The betrayal had almost cost them everything, but it had also reminded them of why they fought: to protect their homes, their families, and each other. As Ethan looked around at his team, their faces covered in dirt and blood but determined, he knew one thing for sure: humanity would never give up. They had fought too hard, and they would continue to fight, no matter the cost. The road ahead was uncertain, but there was one thing Ethan was sure of: humanity would never surrender. The Dominion had underestimated them before, and they would do so again. And this time, humanity was ready. They would fight back, no matter the odds. The future of Earth was still in their hands. The final battle for Earth had begun, and humanity was determined to prove that they were not just survivors. They were warriors. The Dominion had believed they could crush Earth in an instant, but what they hadn't counted on was the unbreakable spirit of humankind. Despite overwhelming odds, despite countless losses, the human race had fought back. And now, with their backs against the wall, they were making their last stand. The scene was set for an epic clash. The humans were armed with experimental weapons and driven by a singular desire: survival. The world, their homes, their families, all of it was on the line. The fate of Earth rested in the hands of those who had not yet given up, who refused to kneel before the Dominion. In space, the battle raged. The Dominion's massive flagship, a symbol of their superiority, floated ominously in the void. It had seemed invincible, its shields impenetrable, its weapons lethal. But the humans had a secret weapon: cloaking technology. Their ships, hidden in the darkness of space, silently approached the flagship. The tension was palpable as the human fleet carefully maneuvered into position. Then, in a flash, they struck. Cloaked ships appeared from the darkness, ambushing the Dominion flagship with precision. The human pilots, trained for this moment, expertly disabled the ship's main power systems, sending waves of confusion throughout the Dominion fleet. The flagship, once a beacon of power, was now crippled, its systems flickering and its weapons useless. For the first time in this war, the Dominion fleet was on the defensive. The humans had gained a crucial advantage, but it came at a cost. Their ships had taken heavy damage, and the fleet was scattered. They needed to press on while they still had the upper hand, before the Dominion could regroup. There was no time to waste. On the surface of Earth, Ethan Cole and Dr. Alyssa Kane led the charge. The Dominion's final stronghold on Earth had to be destroyed if humanity was to have any hope of winning. The two leaders fought side by side, their bond strengthened by the countless battles they had fought together. They knew the risks. This would be their most dangerous mission yet. The Dominion's final weapon was said to be capable of annihilating entire cities with a single shot. If they didn't act fast, humanity would be lost. As they approached the stronghold, the landscape was filled with chaos. The Dominion's forces were entrenched, prepared for the final assault. But the humans had something the Dominion didn't: desperation. The need to survive, to protect their homes, their loved ones, pushed them beyond their limits. They fought with everything they had, using every weapon at their disposal. Cloaking devices allowed them to outmaneuver the enemy. EMPs disabled Dominion technology, and the eye-controlled robots they had turned against their foes now worked in tandem with human soldiers, overwhelming the Dominion's defenses. Despite their ingenuity, the odds were still heavily against them. Dominion forces outnumbered them, and the remaining Dominion soldiers fought with brutal efficiency. Ethan led the charge, his weapon in hand, never hesitating as he cut down enemy after enemy. He could see the fear in the Dominion soldiers' eyes as they realized they were being beaten at their own game. But even as the humans gained ground, the battle was far from over. Alyssa, with her sharp mind and quick thinking, realized that the Dominion's final weapon was still active. It had to be destroyed before it could be used to wipe out the remaining human resistance. But getting to it was going to be impossible. The stronghold was heavily fortified, and the closer they got, the fiercer the enemy's resistance became. The tension mounted as Alyssa made a decision that would cost her dearly. She knew that the only way to destroy the weapon was to get close enough to disable it manually. But the closer she got, the more dangerous it became. The Dominion's defenses were relentless, and every step forward was met with an overwhelming force. "Alyssa, no," Ethan shouted as he saw her moving toward the weapon. "You can't. It's too dangerous." But Alyssa's eyes were focused on the target. "If I don't do this, we'll all die," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We don't have a choice." Ethan wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. They didn't have a choice. With a final glance toward him, Alyssa sprinted forward, dodging blasts and explosions as she closed in on the weapon. The ground shook beneath her feet, but she pressed on, her mind set on one thing: saving humanity. Ethan fought alongside her, trying to cover her as best as he could. His heart pounded in his chest, and every second felt like an eternity. He knew that if they failed, Earth would be lost. But Alyssa was relentless, and her determination inspired him. If she could keep fighting, so could he. As Alyssa reached the weapon's control panel, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield. Ethan looked up just in time to see a Dominion soldier aiming at Alyssa. Time seemed to slow as Ethan's instincts took over. He threw himself in front of her, taking the blast meant for her. The pain was searing, but he refused to let go. Alyssa's eyes widened in horror as she turned to see Ethan crumple to the ground. But there was no time to waste. She activated the device, deactivating the weapon just as the explosion reached them. The stronghold trembled, and the Dominion forces began to retreat. Their last weapon had been destroyed, and humanity had won a significant victory. But at what cost? Ethan lay there, his life slipping away. His vision blurred, and he could barely hear the sounds of the battle around him. Alyssa knelt beside him, tears in her eyes as she held his hand. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it." Ethan's lips curled into a faint smile. "No," he said weakly. "You did it. You saved us all." As the battle raged on around them, Ethan held his fallen friend's weapon in his hands. He could feel the weight of the loss, but he knew that humanity had not given up. They had fought, and they had won. Earth was still theirs. And as he took his final breath, he made a vow to himself and to the future of humanity. They would never stop fighting. They would never let the Dominion take their world again. The final battle was over, but the war for Earth had only just begun. The battle was over. After years of resistance, humanity had finally defeated the Dominion. Their technologically superior forces, the relentless eye-controlled fleet, and their seemingly unbreakable hold on Earth had been shattered. The Earthlings had won, but the victory came at a cost that would forever change their world. The skies were clear now, the alien ships that once loomed over Earth's major cities retreating into the dark void of space. Earth, though scared, was free. The Dominion had underestimated humanity, and now it was their time to retreat. But as the last of the alien ships disappeared into the horizon, the reality of their survival settled in. There was no going back to the world they had once known. Humanity had reclaimed their planet, but Earth would never be the same. The cities, once thriving hubs of life, were now rubble. Fields and forests had been burned, and the once beautiful landscape was marred by the marks of battle. The Dominion had left its scars on Earth, but humanity had endured. They had fought for every inch, every breath, and now they had their world back. But the cost was high, too high for many to comprehend. Thousands had lost their lives in this war. Friends, families, entire communities had been wiped out. The bodies of fallen soldiers and civilians lay scattered across the battlefields. The price of freedom was steep, and though victory had been won, the grief weighed heavily on the hearts of those who remained. Among the survivors, one stood out, a man who had led his people with unwavering resolve and an indomitable spirit. Ethan Cole, a man who had witnessed the death of his friends, the loss of his family, and the destruction of his world, stood atop a hill overlooking the ruins of the cities he had once known. His heart ached with every step he took, every breath he drew. He had fought for this moment, fought for Earth, but as he looked at the remains of the once bustling world, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had lost. Ethan's journey had begun long ago, when the Dominion first set their sights on Earth. He had been just another soldier, unaware of the battle that would unfold. But as the war raged on, Ethan had become more than just a fighter. He had become a symbol of humanity's unyielding will to survive. He had seen his friends fall, his world crumble, but he never stopped. Even when all seemed lost, even when the Dominion seemed invincible, Ethan had led his people through the darkest of times. And now, standing on that hill, watching the sunset over a broken world, he realized that their struggle had not been in vain. As he gazed out at the horizon, his mind wandered back to the beginning. When the war had first started, it had been a time of fear and uncertainty, a time when humanity was just beginning to realize the magnitude of the threat they faced. The Dominion, with their advanced technology and ruthless tactics, had arrived with a single purpose: to conquer Earth. They had underestimated the resilience of humankind. They had thought Earth's inhabitants were weak, unprepared for the brutality of intergalactic warfare. But they were wrong. Ethan could still remember the first battle, the terror in the eyes of the people as the Dominion ships descended upon their cities. The invasion had been swift, overwhelming, and for a while, it seemed like humanity stood no chance. But the humans fought back. Against all odds, they fought. They used their ingenuity, their resilience, their unwavering belief in the future. They never surrendered, never backed down, and that was what had made them victorious. The memories of the sacrifices, the bloodshed, the pain, and the loss were fresh in Ethan's mind, but so was the hope that had driven him and countless others to fight until the end. It was the hope that had kept humanity standing, even when the Dominion's forces seemed unstoppable. And now, standing in the ruins of Earth, Ethan realized that the victory was not just about defeating the Dominion. It was about something much greater. It was about humanity's spirit, their refusal to give up, no matter the odds. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the cool wind brush against his face as the sun dipped below the horizon. He looked down at his hands, calloused and worn from the years of war. He had seen things, horrors that no one should ever have to witness. But through it all, he had never stopped fighting. He had never given up on his people, on Earth. And now, as the world began to heal, he understood that the war had not been just about survival. It had been about proving that humanity was something more than just another species. They were resilient. They were capable. And most importantly, they were the future. "We are not just survivors," Ethan whispered to himself, the words carrying a weight he had never fully realized before. "We are the future." Those words echoed in his mind, and he knew they were true. Humanity had faced extinction, but they had overcome it. They had taken back their planet, their future, and now they would rebuild. The Dominion had been a force of destruction, but humanity was a force of creation. The same willpower, the same unity that had carried them through the darkest times would now guide them into the future. As the night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Ethan could feel the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders. The war was over, but the journey was just beginning. There was much to rebuild, much to heal, but humanity would do it together. They had proven their strength, their courage, and their ability to endure. And with that, Ethan stood tall, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where the future awaited. "And we will never give up," he added, his voice filled with determination. "We will never give up." The battle for Earth had been won, but the true victory, the victory of humanity's spirit, was just beginning.